Okay, we're going to get back into how to do the exposure blending. I've already put the original photos we talked about in the last episode back in here. So if you'll notice, I'll turn them all off except the best one of our group. Here's the best photo we had. We had an overexposed one, a really overexposed one, another one that was pretty overexposed, not too bad, and then finally one that was underexposed, so a little bit too dark. So the strategy is going to be very similar to what you guys have done before. I'm going to go ahead and add a layer mask. The only difference being is instead of a white mask when I normally click this, I'm going to hold the Option key on the keyboard to make a black mask, which will hide that layer completely. So I'll do that for each of those, and then we'll go back and forth and then try to pick our favorite parts of each of those layers to keep into our final composite. So here's pretty much what we got. Nothing is going to change when I turn these off because the black mask is already hiding everything. So what we'll need to do to toggle these on and off is to temporarily right-click and disable the layer mask to see what we've got on this layer versus the other ones. So that's a little more complicated, but not too much more difficult. So looking at this one real fast, you can kind of see, if we turn that one off, you can see the original photo, and there are certain parts of this photo that seem to be a little bit better. And so we probably want to bring in some of the more of those details from it. It looks to me like we were talking before, mainly the vegetation in the windows is probably the best part of it. Everything else is pretty much too dark. So let me go ahead and turn on the mask, and you're going to see it's going to change things for a second here. So we're back to everything is hiding there. What I want to try to do is paint white in those regions where we think there should be an improvement. And again, I'm painting white on the mask to bring that back into focus. So I'm going to go ahead and start this process, and hopefully you can kind of see some of the changes as I go through it. But we had more detail and more color information and more vibrance. So you kind of probably hear me clicking away, and you can start to see that our original, our best photo didn't have the best quality when it came to that part. So now that we're doing this idea, you can start to see the difference where we're getting stuff to pop in those regions a little bit better. And that's really the whole game. The whole game is going to be pretty much picking and choosing what you like from each photo and using those specific areas. So I'll do a little bit more of that, and I'll probably go kind of fast just to kind of cover all the basic ideas, but I think we're on the right track. So again, if you want to kind of check yourself, you would have to turn off the layer mask completely to see, disable it anyway, and see if there's anything else you wanted to use from that one. For me, that looks pretty good. I think we'll go ahead and enable it, and then same story. Let's turn this one off, and this is now the next layer we're interested in, but to see it, we've got to disable it and figure out what we like on this one the best. So if you toggle that one, you kind of see the room brightens up quite a bit. That was one of the overexposed ones a little bit, so there's definitely some things that we can bring out. Some of the details in here, the entire ceiling looks probably a little bit better than the underexposed ones, so we'll probably try to bring those back into focus and hide the ones that were part of the original layer. So let me go ahead and just enable the mask. Particular layer, I do have to turn the layer on, and then I got to go back to my paintbrush. We're doing 42% as far as the opacity. You might have to adjust that one a little bit, but we know we're probably going to want to bring all this stuff back. If you notice, I'm starting to paint here white, which isn't really painting white. All it's doing is bringing back the details of the layer that was hidden below it. Excuse me, the information that was on this particular layer. So again, if I toggle this one on and off, here, the dark background is coming from our original photo, and you kind of see that seemed to brighten up the whole room quite a bit. So that's kind of the strategy you want to look for. Things that you think might be improved, give it a shot. If it looks better, then you're on the right track. So maybe if we look at the brightness of the paint, that probably is an enhancement we want to use, but it's all kind of a matter of choice. But with that soft, rounded, feathered edge brush, it fades away, so it's not like a hole punch, and you should be able to kind of slowly improve things. And also remember what we did for original compositing. We did a lot of blending at different speeds, at different opacity levels, so you might have more flexibility to try a few more brush strokes and then see if you can get what you want. But you can already start to tell I'm getting some improvements that are better than what we had from just the background, the original base image. So we added these improvements on it. Let's see what happens if we add the other layer we just worked on a second ago. So that should, the bushes and the trees in the background start to look a little better. So now we only have one more layer that hasn't really been put into the story. Let's turn these off for a second. Disable it for just a minute to see what it is. And if you look at it, there's a lot more details. There's a lot more light shining on it. So all these, the grain and the wood, some of the other details we may or may not want to use, but that's kind of what we have to choose from. So here's same story. Enable the layer mask. Let's go ahead and pick and choose our favorite parts of that particular layer. So again, we're at 36% or so now. So I should be able to go in here and start to just brighten up all those areas that didn't have enough light on them. And with our soft feathered edge brush, we can kind of slowly paint our way into it. Don't forget, you can always make a selection of an area if you want to isolate it so you can't paint outside the lines. So that's a pretty good strategy. I thought there was a couple little details in this part of this area looked a little better. Yeah, so you're able to bring in and complement what you had. So really, I think that's probably enough to get you guys rolling on it. It's definitely a technique I think I want to practice and experiment more. But when I look at the best photos I've seen out there, your top people are awesome with doing the camera work, but they're also probably pretty awesome at doing the editing and final compositing to get that net result. So now that I've done that, let's go ahead and turn all these layers on and see what my final output was. So again, that's the final result of everything. Here's what we got if we went with just our best. So that was originally our best, but piece by piece we added some enhancements. And there's our final composite blending. Okay, all right, hope that worked out.